Okay. Yossi, Manishma.
Oh Hashem, good morning, Rabbi.
Hashem, welcome. We're happy to see you. Happy to have you back.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So we're going to go through some interesting topics today. What will the world be like when Mashiach comes? The resurrection of the dead. Rabbi Torsky, Shalom from Pittsburgh, he grew up in Milwaukee in the 1940s. And there was a older couple who lived in Milwaukee. And her name was Bracha. I don't remember his name. And he used to come to Rabbi Torsky's father, was like a Rebbe of a shul, the Rebbe, and he had a community, and he would ask him, I'm very worried what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. And all those who passed away will come back to life. So he was married. His first wife, I think, was named Bracha, and they had a very difficult marriage. And his first wife passed away young. And then he got married again to a woman of the same name, whose name was also Bracha. And he was very, very happy in the second marriage. So he says, when Mashiach comes, and all those who passed away are going to come back to life, which woman will I be married to? Will I be married to my first wife, Bracha, or my second wife? He said, I don't want to be married to the first one. I want to be married only to the second one. Techias Hameisim, that those who are dead will come back to life, is a 13th of the 13 Ani Mamins, 13 principles of faith. Every single Jew believes this, and we say it every single day. We have multiple times in davening we mention Techias Hameisim, the resurrection of the dead. Most importantly is a bracha, a blessing that we say in Shemona Esrei called Mechaya Hameisim, those who bring the dead back to life. And there's some knowns and many unknowns. What will happen with Techias Hameisim? We have some sources in Midrashim, Torah, which tells us about it. When will it take place? So we'll go through some of these questions. When exactly Techias Hameisim, the resurrection of the dead? Where will it happen? So it says when Mashiach comes, is going to be three different stages. Stage number one is at the Beis HaMikdash, which we see on Yossi's background, right, is going to be rebuilt. That's number one. Number two is that Jews will be gathered in from all parts of the world, all the exiles, back to their holy land. Number three, there's going to be Techias Hameisim, those who passed away will come back to life. It's halacha, it's a ruling that this is the law that those who passed away will come back to life. Those who are buried in Eretz Yisrael, says, will come to life, will be resurrected first. That's one of the reasons why many Jews, Shalom Aleichem, Pinchas, many Jews throughout history always wanted to be buried in the Holy Land of Israel, because they will rise, those who pass away will rise to life first in Eretz Yisrael. Then those buried outside of Eretz Yisrael, and finally the generation of the desert, those who passed away, those who left Egypt and passed away in the desert. And we're going to have proofs of all of these. The second opinion is that first ones to be resurrected, to come back to life, will those be in Eretz Yisrael, who were buried in Israel, then those buried outside of Israel, and then the others, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, will be the final ones to be brought back to life, that they should wake up and they should see all their descendants and become very happy. The third opinion says it doesn't depend where you're buried, it depends what type of person you were. If you were a tzaddik, then you come first. You come back to life first. Then comes the Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars, then those who did mitzvahs, and then everyone else. The fourth opinion is that the first ones to come back to life will be those who are humble, who never held themselves too great. Where will it happen? Will happen in Eretz Yisrael, meaning Those who are buried in Eretz Yisrael will come back to life in the Holy Land. Those tzaddikim buried outside of Eretz Yisrael will be brought to Eretz Yisrael and come back to life over there. And then everyone else will be brought there either through mechilas, it says underground tunnels that they'll have to roll there, or Malach Gavriel will bring there. But it's going to happen in Eretz Yisrael. We're going to discuss the idea of Gilgal. Gilgal, it's translated as reincarnation. It's sort of recycling. A neshama, a soul, is what gives life to the body. And the neshama, the soul, has to come down to this world many times. Now, Rizal says it comes down many times because every single Jewish person has to do all 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. And therefore, you have to come back to the world again and again in order to fulfill all 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. So it could be that one neshama, one soul, came back to life many times. So when the soul comes back to life when Mashiach comes, in which body will it come? So we're going to bring different sources, but the idea, the general explanation is that every single neshama, every single soul, every single guf, every body will come back to life with a piece of the neshama of the soul that it elevated. So everybody will come back to life. Everybody will have a part of the neshama, but the neshama is, since it's the essence of Hashem, you'll also have the complete access to the neshama. So everyone who passed away will come back to life. But it could be you'll have different people who are all sourced from the same soul, the same neshama. According to the Zohar, every single person will have to come back, will need Techias Hameisim, meaning everyone in the world will die momentarily for a moment and then come back to life as soon as Mashiach comes. How will everyone come back to life? Will they be healed? Will they be healthy? Are they going to be wearing their work clothes, their street clothes, the clothes they were buried in? And even in this, they're going to find multiple opinions. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi in the Gemara asked his children to bury him in simple tachrichim, simple burial shrouds, because he says everyone, when they will be resurrected, when they passed away, they're not going to be wearing their tachrichim, their burial shrouds, they're going to be wearing other clothes. When people will come back to life after they pass away, Hashem will heal them. Otherwise, they'll be unrecognizable, but Hashem, they're going to come back to life with all the same sicknesses that they had when they passed away, and Hashem will heal them. Will Hashem make the body from scratch? It says the body contains one bone that never disintegrates. It's called the etzem luz, the luz bone. And they say it's one of the vertebrae of the spine, and Hashem will rebuild the body from it with a special Techias as a dew, which will bring those who passed away, back to life. Where exactly is this bone? Some say it's a bone right at the back of the head, where the knot of your tefillin is. Some say it's a bone at the bottom of your spine. And when we come back to life, what type of life are we going to live when Mashiach comes? There's different kufas, different periods, time periods after Mashiach comes. The Gemara says that after the Techias Hameisim, the resurrection of the dead, people will no longer eat or drink, and instead we're going to enjoy the Shekhinah the whole day. If so, why come back to life in a body? If we don't need to eat, we don't need to drink. Also, we learned Hashem will prepare a special feast when Mashiach comes. And the Rebbe will explain that when Mashiach comes, no longer will we need to eat in order to live. We'll be eating for other purposes, not in order to live. We'll be in a physical body, but we won't be dependent on the body, on food in order to live. Rather, the food will be there to serve a greater purpose, as we'll get to soon. And we're going to go through all of this. Now, we've recently finished studying the Rambam, where every single Jew, it's for everybody, has a portion, has a track to learn Rambam. Some can learn the entire Rambam, 3 chapters a day, some 1 chapter a day, some the Sefer Mitzvahs, the list of mitzvahs of the day. The final 2 chapters of the Rambam discuss what will be when Mashiach comes. And there's a letter of the Rebbe that he wrote in the 1940s describing many details what will happen by Techias, Hameisim, resurrection of the dead, and what will happen when Mashiach comes. So we're Acharemos Kedoshim. Acharemos is after death. Kedoshim, holiness. This week we're in the parsha of Kedoshim, and so we'll discuss what will be after the time period when people die. There will be no more people who are dead. Everyone will come back to life. How will it work? So here it's a little bit corrupted in the Hebrew. I have to work on that for another time. So I'll read it in the Hebrew or the English. The Beis HaMikdash koidim l'kibbutz galuyos. The third Beis HaMikdash, which Yossi has on his background, will be built before Mashiach, before the Jewish people are gathered in from all over the world. Kibbutz galuyos koidim Techias Hameisim. Gathering everyone from all the corners of the world, all the Jews, comes before the resurrection of the dead. And then, Arbayim Shana Kodim Techias Hameisim, Arbayim Shana Kodim Kibbutz Galuyos Techias Hameisim. 40 years later, says the Gemara, will be the resurrection of the dead. Why in this order? Says the Zohar. Ditnan, Beis HaMikdash Kodim Kibbutz Galuyos. The reason why this specific order is, it says in Tehillim, Boine Yerushalayim Hashem and Nitche Yisrael Yichanes. Say this every day during the Hallelujahs. Hashem rebuilds Jerusalem, that comes first. So first they rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. Then comes Nitche Yisrael Yichanes. He'll gather in the exiles of Israel. Says the first Jewish shul in Boston was called Beis HaKnesses Nidche Yisrael, the dispersed Jews. Then comes the Hashem heals, will bandage the worries, which refers to Techias Hameisim, the resurrection of the dead. Because many people in the world, and unfortunately, I think most people experience this one way or the other, and they lost someone close and dear to them, and they're brokenhearted, and Hashem will heal them. So from this pasuk, from this verse, we see that first, the first stage will be rebuilding Jerusalem, the Beis HaMikdash. Second stage will be returning the Jewish people to the Holy Land of Israel. Third is healing the brokenhearted, bringing the dead back to life. Now, this is not just a Zohar, an esoteric explanation. This is also a halacha. The Rambam is the only one who speaks about the times of Mashiach from a halachic standpoint, and he rules the same thing like we said in the Zohar. In the future, Mashiach will arise and bring back the dynasty of King David HaMelech, to its initial strength. He'll build the Beis HaMikdash and gather in the dispersed people of Israel. A side point, during the time of the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948, and hundreds of thousands of Jews from all over the world were coming to Israel. And many people believed this was the beginning of Mashiach, the beginning of redemption. And the Jewish people coming to Israel was the ultimate gathering of Jews from exile that the Nevi'im, that our prophets told about, and the beginning of a stage of Mashiach. And the Rebbe stated very unequivocally that the victory in the War of Independence in the Holy Land of Israel and the establishment of a Jewish sovereignty in Eretz Israel were very great miracles for the Jewish people from Hashem. And we have to treasure these gifts and be responsible with the gift that we're given, so we should be able to hold on to them for a long term. And the Rebbe clarified this cannot be considered the beginning of Mashiach, for it would need to be done in the right order told to us by the Rambam, we learned earlier. And first comes the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and then comes the ingathering of the exiles. So if we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, yet the gathering of the exiles is not considered to be a process of Mashiach coming. Therefore, you cannot say that the establishment of the state of Israel is the beginning of Mashiach coming. Now, if you go throughout a Jewish history, there are millions upon millions upon millions of Jews throughout history. Is there any specific preference who will be resurrected first? So there were 4 opinions, which the first one we said is first will be those who passed away, who are buried in Israel, followed those who are buried outside of Israel, and finally the dead of the generation from the desert. And some say that our forefathers Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov will be the last ones. And it's based on a pasuk, on a verse, which says, Yichyu mesecha, let your dead come back to life. Nivloisi yukuman, let the corpses arise. Akitzu v'ran Moshe Yafer, waken and shout for joy those who dwell in the dust. Says Rabbi Yochanan. The first ones that come back to life, it says in the Zohar, are those buried in the Holy Land of Israel. As it says, Mesecha, your dead will be resurrected. Then comes those outside of Eretz Yisrael. And then it says, those who dwell in the dust should come back to life and joy and exult as going on the generation of the desert. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher, why did he pass away in the desert outside of the Holy Land of Israel? So Rabbi Yochanan says it was in order to show the world that just like Hashem will bring Moshe Rabbeinu back to life, so too he will bring back to life the entire generation of those Jews who passed away in the desert, who died before they came to the Holy Land of Israel, the generation which received the Torah. Because Hashem remembers, as it says, I remember devotion of your youth, that you followed Hashem into the wilderness. And Hashem remembers our devotion and loyalty we had to Him, and they will all come back to life. Next opinion. It's in a sefer called Avkas Reichel, also a sefer of Kabbalah. Shimon says, first will be those in Eretz Yisrael will come to life, then the ones in Chutz La'aretz, outside, and then our forefathers will be last. That they should wake up. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov should come, and they should come to a party that's totally welcome, it's totally ready for them. When you have a great a speaker coming, he's not the first one in the room. First, everyone else comes, and then afterwards, the great guest of honor comes. So Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov should wake up and see everyone ready to greet them. Interestingly, Chassidus from the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe bring the opinion many times that before the general resurrection of the dead, many of the great tzaddikim, leaders of the generations, will come to life before, including Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe, and Aaron, and all the Rebbeim. They'll come to life before. Another opinion says, first the tzaddikim will rise, and the Torah scholars, and those who do mitzvahs. Another opinion says, it's a medrash quoted by the Oyev Yisrael of Apt. And if Dovi is here, he would say it's his relative. He says that it will go in a order of Aleph Beis. Whatever your first name is, that's what order you're going to come back to life. And those who are humble will come back to life before everyone else. Where will the miracle of Techias Hameisim happen? When all the dead rise, will they come back to life where they passed away, where they're buried, or will they come back to life in Eretz Yisrael? And this we explained, that will all come back to life in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael. First, they will be brought to Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land, and then only afterwards will they come back to life. But the special due of Mashiach special due of resurrection of the dead will happen only in Eretz Yisrael, only in the Holy Land. Says Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Lazar, he says in Ksubas, Hameisim shebechutz la'aretz einam Chaim lasad lava. Rabbi Lazar says in Sechta Ksubas Kuf Yud Aleph that those who are buried outside of Israel will not come back to life. Shenemar v'nisati tzvi b'eretz Chaim. I will place glory. Tzvi means a deer, but the word tzvi also means sivyoni. Sivyoni means something that you want. And Hashem only wants Jews to be in the old Eretz Yisrael. Eretz shesivyoni ba calls Hameisim is Chaim ain't sivyoni ba bechutz la'aretz emisei Chaim. The land which Hashem is watching constantly, which is Eretz Yisrael, that they will be resurrected to come back alive. But those buried outside of Eretz Yisrael, he says, will not come back to life. Uladas Rabbi Elazar, and according to Rabbi Elazar, will tzaddikim outside of the Holy Land of Israel, will they not come back to life by the resurrection of the dead? Amar Rabbi Elah Aidei Gilgal. Shatman is Gagla is making for us in Shagias Eretz Yisrael v'Shamim Chaim. So he says, Rabbi Elazar says that no, those who passed away in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, Ira HaKayin, executive producer.
I'm calling to make a very special announcement.
Let's hear.
Happy 37th birthday to Bob Minsky. Oh, he's not even on today. It's not even on. Well, now, whenever you see him, wish him a happy birthday.
37, okay.
37.
Well, he
figure it out.
He set the clock backwards. Okay, very nice.
Exactly. All right, continue. I'll join in.
You got to teach me that trick.
Sure. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay, so continue. So it says only those buried in Israel come back to life. What about those buried outside of Israel? You have so many tzaddikim. So the Rabbi Long Gemara says that they are going to be brought to Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land. So those who are tzaddikim, righteous people, will be brought quickly, right away. And those who are the opposite of tzaddikim, so then it says they're going to have Gilgal, go through tunnels under the ground, which will open up, and they might have to roll, and it'll take more time for them to return to Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land. And only then will they be able to come back to life. And that could be a very painful experience. You know, there's an old joke that was said that Mashiach finally comes and he walks into a Beis Medrash, walks into a big yeshiva, goes over to the Rosh Yeshiva and he tells him, Shalom Aleichem, Mashiach, we waited for you for so long. Where have you been? Mashiach says, I came as fast as I can. Do you have anything you did to get ready to greet me? And the Rosh Yeshiva says, yes, I prepared a very, very deep Torah thought for you. And he starts telling Mashiach his deep Torah thought that he has. And Mashiach is a very great Torah scholar. He's going to teach Torah to Mashiach, to Moshe, to the Avos. And he asks a very powerful question on what the Rosh Yeshiva said. And he keeps on asking stronger questions. And finally, the Rosh Yeshiva says, Mashiach, you would have given me a little more time, you would have come a little bit later, I would have been able to prepare better for you. Then the Mashiach is walking down the street in Yerushalayim, and he hears some noise coming out of a small shtibel. He goes in and he sees a bunch of chassidim sitting around, and they say, hey, Shalom Aleichem, Mashiach, welcome, we've been waiting for you for a long time. Mashiach says, well, I came here as fast as I can. Tell me, did you prepare anything for me? So one of the chassidim takes out a bottle, just a little bit of mashka left over, a tiny bit. And he says, Mashiach, here's what we have for you. Mashiach says, what? That's all you have for me? This little tiny bit? So the chassid says, hey, if you would have come earlier, you would have had more. You should have come faster. Those who want Mashiach and prepare for Mashiach and really are impatient for Mashiach, these are the ones, he says, mitzapim liyeshua. So the first question you're asked when Mashiach comes, when you come to the world to come. See, peace al Yeshua, you've been waiting for Mashiach to come.
Well, I make a suggestion. Rabbi Twersky once said, he said, when you're waiting for the AAA to come to start your car because your battery died and you need to get somewhere, and a truck goes by and you look out the window and you think it's the AAA, but it's not, and you wait and wait and you hear another noise and you think, he said, if everybody would wait for Mashiach like they're waiting for the AAA, they would have come by now.
That is he's
That's a Rabbi Dr.
1,000,000% accurate.
That's right.
I don't know if you remember, but I remember this. It was still around when I was a kid. By many weddings, we had what's called the Techias Hameisim dance. It was a skit pulled off by two people, dressed up a little. One man has a drink, the other one wants it. They fight. One is knocked dead, petrified. The other one tries to bring him back to life. It's a whole silent act being done by weddings, and it was called the Techias Hameisim dance. Where finally, in order to bring him back to life, he tries everything, moves his hands, his feet, jumps on him, what they do at these weddings. Finally, he gives a few pumps of mashke into his mouth, and suddenly he comes back to life. But there was a dance called the Techias Hameisim dance. When Yaakov passed away, before he passed away, he told his sons, I want you to bury me in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael. Why? So it says in the Zohar, there's Karna said, Yesh soid v'davar, there's a deeper intent that Yaakov had, a deeper meaning. Yaakov knew that he was a complete tzaddik. So why was he worried? Why did he want to be buried in the land of in Israel? He'll anyways come back to life when Mashiach comes. But he says he didn't want that he would have to be transported when Mashiach comes from outside of Israel to the land of Eretz Yisrael. And he thought to himself, maybe he will not be merited. So Yaakov and Yosef both felt the need to be buried in Israel. They both knew that they're going to have Techias Hameisim, resurrection of the dead, but they were not sure of whether the move to Eretz Yisrael will be painful. We'll have to go rolling through the tunnels underground, which will open when Mashiach comes. So in order to avoid this possibility, says Reb Karna, they asked them to be buried in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael. So who brings the bodies to Eretz Yisrael? Says Rabbi Yitzchak, Gavriel, the angel Gavriel will bring in. We know throughout the generations, many, many great tzaddikim, many great Jews, all wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. We have stories in the Gemara, and they follow Yaakov Avinu's example. They all wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. One example is the Rambam himself. The Rambam passed away in Egypt, and he asked that his body be brought to Eretz Yisrael. And it was a miraculous story. It was put on a camel. They were attacked by bandits. Those accompanying him ran away and escaped. The bandits tried opening the coffin of the Rambam. They couldn't open it. When they finally managed to dislodge a lid, they saw the Rambam and they became scared. They ran away. And the camel walked by itself through the desert. And it came all the way to Eretz Yisrael, and it stopped exactly where he's buried now in Tiberia, which is right next to the Kvarim, the graves of many great tzaddikim, Rav Ami, Rav Asi, Ravina, Rav Ashi, etc. What's interesting is none of the Chabad Rebbes are buried in Eretz Yisrael. The only Rebbe to visit Eretz Yisrael was the previous Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And he said that even when he visited Eretz Yisrael, the main purpose of him visiting was to visit graves of tzaddikim, the resting places of the great tzaddikim in Eretz Yisrael, because he was not able to go back to Russia, communist Russia and Ukraine, and to go to the oil of the Rebbe Rashab and the oils of the resting places of the previous Rebbes. Earlier this week, we had a walking tour of some of the oils in Hadich and Lubavitch. And our Rebbe explains that why did the Rebbeim not want to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, in Holy Land, although we know our Rebbes went to the furthest lengths and extremes of physical hardship, financial hardship, in order to do a hider mitzvah, to beautify a mitzvah in every possible best way, is because they took an example from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, he stayed in the desert. He davened to Hashem. If he would have davened a little more, he would have been allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael. But Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses said that as long as my people, who I took out of Egypt, have not been allowed to enter Israel, I cannot go in. I will stay with them. And he stayed and he's buried there to give hope and strength to all the Jewish people who died in the desert over all those years. In addition to that, when a Jew is lost, a Jew is feeling a little down, you have where to go. Even though if you're outside Eretz Yisrael, you go to the oil of the Rebbe and you daven there and you for guidance and Hashem will help you. The burial place of a Rebbe is holy as well. And this is a very beautiful explanation of the Rebbe. We'll touch upon very briefly. It's not here in the Rebbe explains that when you go to an ohel, it says Yud Shvat Tafshin Yudal in 1954 in Yud Shvat, and the Rebbe explains the idea of Hishtachos. Some of the ideas behind the specialty of going to ohel of a Rebbe says when Mashiach comes, there will be tunnels leading from the place of the burial of the tzaddik to Eretz Yisrael, and then they'll come back to life in Eretz Yisrael. So the place where you are, the oil of the tzaddik, is attached directly to Eretz Yisrael. And more than that, it's going to be attached to Eretz Yisrael. The tunnels, if you look now, you probably won't find the tunnel. But when Mashiach comes, the tunnel will open up. It will be attached to Eretz Yisrael of a time of Mashiach. And it says, if something changes, but goes back to its original state, it's not considered to be a change. For example, if you have a dry area, and then it becomes a flood, and now it's a river, and then it will go back to becoming dry, does not have the halachic status of a river. For mikvah and for everything else. So a shine chayz lebriyasai, there will be a tunnel going to Eretz Yisrael during the times of Mashiach, and before the tzaddik is alive, afterwards he'll be alive again in a physical way, and that tunnel is merely leading to Eretz Yisrael. So even now, when you go there, it says you can have a connection to Eretz Yisrael and to Mashiach. The way it will be, Eretz Yisrael will be Mashiach comes. So you go there, you have a status of davening in Eretz Yisrael. So even though you're not physically buried in Eretz Yisrael, but being that there's tunnels which will open up to Eretz Yisrael, when you daven there, it has the greatness of davening of Eretz Yisrael and also the greatness of being buried in Eretz Yisrael as well. What happened to those who, when they passed away, they were sick? If they were missing a limb, will they come back totally healthy? Will they come back in the same clothing they were wearing? Here's what's called Gilgal. Souls are reincarnated over and over. The idea of Gilgal is very complex, very beautiful. We've learned about it somewhere in Masechta Tainis, some of them, different Gilgulim of different tzaddikim, of different people. The generation of the times of the Alter Rebbe, they were very, very poor. All the Jews, the main population of the Jewish people was over there under the Russian Tsars. It was in Poland, it was in Ukraine. That's where the main Jewish population was over there. And they were very poor. Also in Germany, they were poor at that time. And the Alter Rebbe said that in the times of the first Beis HaMikdash, the Jewish people, biggest sin was serving idols, idolatry. And in order to properly atone for them, really the punishment from the Torah, the penalty is Misa. A person has a death penalty for serving idols, for serving idolatry, for serving idols. And so and says every time, it says ani chashu kemes, someone who's poor is like considered to be dead. An ani, a poor person, is like a dead person. We have that in Yaakov Avinu was running away Eliphaz. Eliphaz stole his money instead of killing him. And so the Rebbe says that every time a Jewish person groans, from and has hardship or suffering from his poverty, that takes away another chi of misa, takes away another death penalty that they were supposed to have during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. And it's mechaper, this soul atones and makes up for it through the hardship that they're suffering. Our Rebbe tells us that our generation, our souls are a Gilgal, we're a reincarnation of the neshamas of the souls of the Jews who left Mitzrayim, the Jews who left Egypt. Because, as the Zohar says, the generation going into Geula, into Mashiach, will be a generation reincarnating the souls of the Jews who left Mitzrayim, left Egypt. And the sin of that generation was that they did not believe in Moshe Rabbeinu Moshe properly, and did not believe in Hashem properly. They did not believe that from the sin of the spies that they're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, into the Holy Land. And therefore, there were 40 years in the desert, and they all passed away there. It says we have to make up for that by believing against all odds, even if it doesn't make sense, that Hashem will take us out of Galus and Hashem will redeem us. That's the purpose, the stated goal of our generation. In addition, Arizal states that every single person, every single Jewish soul will have to come into the world many times in order to fulfill all the mitzvahs of the Torah, all 613 mitzvahs. And you're going to come again and again until you fulfill all the mitzvahs. So therefore, our neshamas come again over and over into the world. In Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, he says that it could be at every single day, you have different components are added to your neshama, to your soul, when you go to sleep, and you wake up, you do a mitzvah, and you elevate that particular soul. So when we talk about Techias Hameisim, resurrection of the dead, every body that lived, every Jewish person that lived, elevated a certain part and refined a certain part of a neshama of a soul. So the part that they're responsible for is a part that's going to come back to life. No one body takes entire neshama, entire soul, and that we know very clearly. There's only a small part of the soul goes into the body. And no one body could take full credit for the entire neshama, for the entire soul. Question that the Rebbe wrote in the letter is, some people ask, how is it possible that when you have Techias Hameisim, resurrection of the dead, you only have a half a soul? And the Rebbe explains that every soul, is like Tzvi is included. All the other parts are connected and included. And every image has it's like a DNA cell which has every single part connected to it. So even though every particular person who lived and their body, during the time they lived in that particular body, only was able to elevate one aspect of a complete neshama, but every single person will be connected to the entire neshama. It's not missing any pieces. It is not handicapped. Every single person, every part of every soul has everything it needs to be complete in its own way. Just like a drop of the ocean is part of the ocean, so a drop of the neshama could be a part of the neshama. And even more than that, every neshama, every soul, originally came from Adam, the first man. And Hashem showed Adam, the first man, every tzaddik will ever be born. And each tzaddik is sourced from another part of Adam, another part of... the leaders are sourced from his head. One was placed by his hair, which is those who are a little bit further. The doers come from his hands, his arms. The emotional Jews will come from Adam's heart, etc. But we look at each person individually. They're a complete person, although they're sourced from one part of Adam Arishon. So every person comes from a general soul, a general neshama, includes many parts, but every part is a complete person unto itself. Therefore, every single person who passed away will come back to life. Generally, the Rebbe will not speak about Gilgulim in public. It's something more Mekubalim would talk about. The Baal Shem Tov more often would do it. There is one particular story that's known about a certain girl who beginning could speak in the beginning when she was born, but then she lost the power of speech. They went to every doctor and professional, and they couldn't help, and they went to Chiddush by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told them that she was a gilgul of a certain person who used her speech in a very non-positive way. And the Rebbe asked if she's willing to start teaching others and to teach to run benos on Shabbos, to teach gatherings for children on Shabbos. And she started and she shook her head, yeah. And the Rebbe asked her, so what do you want to do? She started speaking to the Rebbe in a low voice, and higher and higher and higher. So by the time she left the Yechidus, she was able to speak normally. Until today, she, Baruch Hashem, could speak normally. So certain times we've seen it by the Rebbe, but generally this is something that was kept away. Gilgulim, previous reincarnations, is not something that is necessary for the average person to know. Tzaddikim can know. And tzaddikim, at times they will reveal, at times they will tell a person what they have to do. One of the famous ones was the Apter Rav, known as Oyev Yisrael, a very big tzaddik, times of the Mittler Rebbe. And the Apter Rav was known to go out of his way to love, how much he was to love his fellow. He would say that in previous Gilgul, in previous reincarnation, he was actually a Kohen Gadol, a high priest in the Beis HaMikdash. And there were several stories that would take place. For example, one person came to him and was talking about a certain aveda, a certain sin they did, and how bad they felt. They wanted to do teshuvah. And the Apter Rav was listening, and he was almost smirking. It's almost like mocking this person. And this person felt really, really terrible. And finally, the Apter Rav told him, go to the next room. Please don't disturb me now. And people saw him and they were shocked. So he's Oyev Yisrael. You would think you would encourage the person, do teshuvah. Hashem will accept everybody. The Apter Rav said, when I was a Kohen Gadol, this person was a Jew who lived at that time. And he brought a carbon chatas, a sin offering, the Beis HaMikdash. And he was doing teshuvah, returning, and feeling so bad about what he did. And I saw it and I felt so bad for him. I went over to him and I comforted him. And I told him it's okay. And afterwards, because of that, the person did not do a complete teshuvah. And it was decreed we both come back to the world again. And this time, I don't want to make the same mistake. And therefore, I'm not going to stop him until he does a complete teshuvah. And feels bad entirely. Then he said he could call him from the room, and he called him back, and he comforted him, etc. He was chazan many times on Yom Kippur, and he would say, instead of when describing the avodah of the Kohen Gadol, the service of the Kohen Gadol, instead of saying that kach haya omer, this is what the Kohen Gadol would do, or this is what the Kohen Gadol would say, he would say kach hayizi omer, this is what I would do, this is what I would say. Certain people could see Gilgulim, but tzaddikim in general are not allowed to reveal what they know and what they see. A certain story of a very big tzaddik, which after his father passed away, all the chassidim came to him asking him to take over and become the next Rebbe, and he refused. And his father came to him and told him that if you accept becoming a Rebbe, I will give you a gift, which is be able to see misoifa olam at soifa, from one end of the world to the other end of the world, to see the deeper meaning, the deeper story behind things that are going on. After that, he agreed to become a Rebbe. In that particular city where they lived, it was a very wealthy person who passed away. And this person gave a lot of tzedakah. Now, there was someone, when the person was getting old and they were sick and they're about to pass away, and they ran to the tzaddik, to the father, and they asked him, what should we do? What should we do? And he says, you should give money to the hektish, to the homeless, the Jewish community, used to have their own homeless shelters for those Jews who were wandering and nowhere to live, the poor. They would have a house for them. And he says the hektish is very run down, and he should give money to renovate, to fix a hektish. And that's what they did. And a short time after they fixed the hektish, after it was being fixed, the wealthy person passed away. And in the hektish, there was a woman who was, her husband passed away, was a widower, and she was pregnant, and she was ready to have a baby, and when the hektish was fixed, and they started putting food and money and fixing the hektish, she was able to have her baby. The baby was born in the hektish. Now, what was happening was that the person who was passing away was already decided they should pass away, and his neshama, his soul, was being reincarnated, was coming into the soul of the child who was being born in the hektish. And since he gave so much tzedakah, he wanted that it was given him the merit that instead of receiving tzedakah from others, he should pay for his own needs. So the child the mother who had a baby was actually being supported by himself, by the money of the person who passed away, and that's where the money was going towards. Now, this very wealthy family, the father passed away, and they had several children who were not married yet. Meantime, the tzaddik passed away, and his son was taken over, and his son finally accepted the leadership, and was able to be seen as gift, to see the deeper story behind everything. And one of their daughters in the family, a daughter of the wealthy family, got engaged and was getting married, and invited the new Rebbe to come to the chassan, to come to the wedding. And at this wedding, there, like all weddings back then, there was a large head table and the prestigious people, and they had a table for aniyim, a table for poor people to come. And now this mother and son who were living in the hektish, they came to the wedding as well. Now, so the son, the young boy, he has the neshama, the soul of the father of the kala. And this only one who knew that, of course, was the tzaddik himself. And when it came to the chuppah, and the tzaddik is there, he's doing, he wants to start saying the brachas for the chassan and kala, and then this boy comes running and says, I want a beer, I have to be here too. Everyone's like, what's this poor boy doing here? But out of respect for the tzaddik, nobody touched him. And when it came to the wedding meal, this young poor boy runs up to the head table and says, I have to sit here at the head table. He didn't know why. The tzaddik knew why, because his neshama is really the neshama of the father of the kala, of the bride. And everyone wanted to send him away, take him away. But out of respect for the tzaddik, they left him there. And he's going, when it came to all the fancy courses, fancy meals, I need the best wine. Until it came to a point where, notwithstanding that the tzaddik is sitting right over there watching what's happening, a whole bunch of people came, picked up this young boy, kicking and screaming, and they took him out of the wedding. And after this, the tzaddik turned around and asked Hashem, please take away this ability that you gave me, because I cannot handle seeing it. Because knowing what was really happening, this is really the child who's supposed to be at this wedding, really the father of the kala, and seeing the way he got treated, this really, I cannot handle it. And he asked Hashem to take away this special gift that he was given, and it was taken away from him. So the idea of Gilgal, every person comes back to life over and over in order to elevate and do something in this world. But one of the reasons we have to come back again and again is to fix up a part of our neshama, to elevate, to polish a part of our neshama. The negative parts of the neshama don't stay. The filth that happened from enough sin going against Hashem does not stay. But the good parts all join together, and we polish our neshama. And the Rebbe actually said, in our generation, there are many neshamas which are born, people which are born, and they're living just in order to witness the coming of Mashiach. Not for any other reason. They already did everything else that they had to accomplish throughout Gullus. They're only here to witness the coming of Mashiach. So in order to get ready for Mashiach, sometimes you have a Gilgal coming back again and again. We'll just very quickly go through the rest. It says, when those who come back to life will come back the way they passed away. If they were sick, they come back sick. Everyone will recognize who they are, and Hashem will heal them afterwards. Hashem will resurrect them from the etzem luz, a small little bone, and the way they are, and only afterwards heal them. And it says Hashem will shine upon them the special sun that Hashem shined for Avram Avinu to heal him after his bris, and he will heal all those who are not well. Hashem will heal them with that, and Hashem should heal everyone who's sick very soon. They'll wear the same clothes that they wore when they passed away. It says, after Shmuel Hanavi, Shmuel the prophet died, and the Plishtim came to attack him, and Shaul was very concerned, and he turned to Hashem for guidance, received no answer. He felt he had no choice, and he went to an idol worshiper, which the Torah says you're not allowed to go to, who practiced oiv, was outlawed, and him as a Jewish king, it was his duty to wipe out the practice of oiv. So he came in disguise, and the one of oiv, the practitioner of oiv, said, "I'm not going to do this for you." He wanted to call Shmuel and ask him questions. "I can't do it for you. The king Shaul will kill me." Shaul promised her not to be afraid. So this lady of oiv conjured up Shmuel, and she realized that King Shaul was standing in front of her, because in general, when they would conjure up a dead person would stand upside down or sideways. And here, Shmuel was standing straight up. She realized it's a king. She said, "You fooled me." And Shaul asked this oiv practitioner, "Can you describe me the person you see?" And she described Shmuel as an elderly man wrapped up in a cloak, and Shaul recognized it was Shmuel, because Shmuel wore a certain type of cloak during his lifetime. Shmuel was very angry with King Shaul HaMelech for bringing him up through oiv, through idol worship. And he says that if Hashem is not answering you, it's because Hashem is upset and you're being punished by Hashem. Then Shmuel told Shaul the war will be unsuccessful, and him and his sons will fall into the hands of the Plishtim and be killed. So we see that Shaul came back wearing the clothes that not that he was buried in, but wearing the clothes that he wore his entire life. Tosfos relates that Rebbe Yehuda Nasi instructed that he be buried in very simple shrouds, because at the time when the dead come back to life, they're going to be wearing not what they're buried in, but rather what they were during their life, and you shouldn't wear expensive shrouds. The body will be recreated from the etzem luz, from the luz bone. Nowadays, we could sort of understand it, because all you need is one cell, one DNA, one part of one tiny cell, and you could clone an animal. You could clone a person, but hopefully we haven't done it yet. So all Hashem needs is etzem luz, and you'll rebuild an entire person out of that. And the most important thing is, what would life be like after Mashiach comes? There won't be any eating or drinking. Why is Hashem going to make a big feast for tzaddikim? But rather, we're going to live in a higher being, in a higher type of life. Because we'll have a physical world, we'll have food and drink, but instead of being reliant in food and drink, instead, we're going to live off the neshama. And that's going to be, we'll not need food, we'll not need drink, but rather, we'll have just the greatness of Hashem, our neshamas. We'll be able to see the greatness of the body. And instead of the neshama giving life to the body, he says the body will give life to the neshama. And how is that? By receiving the greatness of Hashem. So with this, we'd like to wish everybody a very, very good Shabbos. We have only simcha